Hello, good evening, and welcome. I'm Simon Bestwick.
And I'm Gemma Files, and this, of course, is
Oh.
No Darkness, But Ours. And
Yeah.
today, once again, we are interviewing someone who I think is doing amazing work.
Yep.
Yes?
Yep.
Thank you.
The owner,
Yes.
Lynda E Rucker,
Yes.
So,
whose latest collection, Now It's Dark, is just out now from Swan River Press for a mere 40 of your euros, with a cover by Jean Coulthard, which is just adding to the coolness.
gorgeous, yes.
Oh, yes.
Introduction from Rob Aickman, but most of all, a bunch of stories from Lynda Rucker, which is why we're here. And
Yes. We're both vibrating, vibrating like a like a Robin Hitchcock song.
yeah,
But
it's fucking brilliant. It's a fucking brilliant.
Thank you. Gosh, thank you. Thank you. I'm getting embarrassed. I'm going to walk off the camera.
All right. Okay. So the three things that occur to me are that this is I know that at least one story was written for an Aickman tribute.
Yeah,
But
the first story, yeah.
Yeah, these are stories that genuinely are Aickman-esque. They are strange stories. They are dreamlike. They involve dreams, but they are also dreamlike. And I was incredibly impressed by your commitment to keeping the climax kind of off screen, which is a hard thing to do. It's sort of like, I'm going to imply where things are going, but you're not going to get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which is ultimately liminal. So it's like it's a collage of holes strung together with more holes, and then there's a hole at the end. And I'm down for that.
Put a down for this.
Seriously down for that. The seance.
Yeah.
Incredible. Everything I love.
Thank you.
And knots as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was wow.
Based around a particular trick from witchcraft that you almost never see referenced anymore. Of course, the witch's ladder. But one way or the other, just incredible stuff. I don't know how much how detailed we want to get into talking about various stories, but yes, I am equal parts energized and jealous as
hell. Oh no, neither one of you should be, but thank you. I'm glad you both enjoyed it.
Yeah,
we did. I mean, I think it's always this thing with when you read a really something really good and original, you're always kind of like, you're blown away so much by it. It can take a little while, for me anyway, to sometimes see past that and remind you that this person writes this stuff because that's what they do.
Yeah.
And you do your own thing, and that's different.
Yeah.
And it's different tools. But I mean, if I end up writing something that's a bit Rucker-like in the future, then
it will be a tribute, not a rip-off.
Right. Yeah. I'll be very flattered, Simon.
I mean, on Aickman, picking up off what Gemma said there, because I mean, he's a writer. I mean, he's one of the great stylists of sort of classic horror. I mean, he's definitely up there with James. But while James has spawned legions of imitators and people, sort of looking to carry our legacy on, Aickman is I can't think of very many writers who actually write what you might call Aickman-esque fiction. You're one of the very few, but with very much your own. I think I said to somebody, if Robert Aickman had been sort of expatriate Anglophile feminist from Georgia, then he might he probably still wouldn't have been this good, but I mean, something I was reminded of something that Joel Lane had to say. I'm often reminded of things that Joel Lane had to say about horror fiction because he knew an awful lot about it, and but he sort of said that one of the big difference for him between James and Aickman was that while for James, the supernatural, the weird, is something from outside. It's something that invades normal everyday life from somewhere else. And for Aickman, the weird or the supernatural is something that's part of everyday life. It arises
Right.
from, it's like an emergent property.
Yes. Yeah.
Does that have anything in common with that, with your approach to fiction? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of funny because I've had people, the sort of where do you get your ideas that people ask. And what I often say is that these stories are kind of very much how I see the world. The world is a weird place, and you walk around and you see so much weird shit, and you just kind of think, you see things in passing, and they're so strange,
Yeah.
And I really like the idea of these things arising from within. I'm not really that interested in something that comes from outside. There are stories and movies that do that, and I enjoy them, but that's not something I'm particularly interested in exploring myself. And I'm also, a lot of my influence is very much just from mainstream fiction. And I like to sort of take that kind of a story and then tweak it, see what happens when you do bring in something very strange.
I was going to say that, that also is the essence of Lynch.
That obviously another big influence. So yeah.
Weird and wild at heart.
Yes.
Weird on top and weird and wild at heart. But also I think that there is that always the juxtaposition between the weirdness of the world. Or the potential weirdness of the world and the potential weirdness of you. Because there's, when you think about it, being human is so odd.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
The way that we're always thinking and we're always filtering stuff through ourselves. We're never actually sure that what we're seeing is what we're seeing.
Right.
Or what we're experiencing is what we're experiencing. So, whenever people are like, no, the world is only like this. Like, wow, you're making it really hard for yourself.
Yeah.
The Procrustean bed, isn't it? No matter what interpretation of reality, no matter how wide-ranging you try to be, there's always some bit that sticks off one end or the other.
That's right.
The end just won't fit into it. It's very annoying, but it is. People have this annoying habit of not being what you think they should be, as every authoritarian learns to their cost.
And the world has that annoying habit as well. And I think we're all, we end up talking to almost everybody we talk to about this, but certainly over the last 3 years, we've, all had that sinkhole feeling that, the ground beneath our feet has kind of become porous and started to slip away, and everything that we, combined with, I think, a 5 to 6 year feeling of, no, wait. I thought we'd established that we should treat each other in specific ways, and some things are true and some things are false, and
somebody got like the breaking news logo from BBC and just put, "Oh fuck, what now?"
Yes.
It kind of sums up the last few years for
it really does. And so, when people say horror is having a moment, I think the fact is that horror is always having a moment. It's just every once in a while everyone sees it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's just, horror. We've said before about how horror is something that really lives in ambiguity and in layers of meaning. And if anything, one of the things that really strikes me about horror is a lot of the time it's like so much horror is in so. I mean, apart from there's the whole thing of people of crossing boundaries, crossing borders without even realizing you're doing it. There's this whole thing of you think you understand reality, and then real reality comes and goes, motherfucker, have I got use for you, and kicks the chair out from under you, in one way or another.
It lives in the cracks. But everyone is full of cracks, and the world is full of cracks. We lie to ourselves all the time, just, I guess, to get out of bed, probably. As you probably know from looking at my social media, if you look at my social media, a friend of mine died about a week ago.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You know, it happens. But yeah, my reaction to it really was, why is there a hole where a person-shaped hole where there used to be a friend? You know, and and I think when we live in a world like a world where we're continually aware that can happen at any time, I don't know why anybody ever gets freaked out about it. And it's like, what? Getting stomach punched by reality, but and yet we do, over and over. So
fooling ourselves, we've got an exemption.
Well, because we're the narrator of our own story and the main character of the world.
Well, the lies we tell to get ourselves out of bed in the morning.
Exactly.
Basically, that we matter. That we have our lives have a purpose. That there's a script. But of course, as we all know, that 9 times out of 10 we're just making this shit up as we go along. So why anyone else should be doing it? Says the pantser. I know you're more of a planner, Gemma.
I am more of a planner, but I think there's an element of pants to everything everyone does. There's always like a, for me, it's between the beginning and the end. Usually there's, not so much how do you get from here to there, but why do you get from here to there? Why do you end up where I know that you eventually end up? So here's what I would ask. Do you think that writing the way you do and writing the way that we do prepares you for stuff like this? Or does it simply become another way of processing it?
I think the latter. I think it's another way of processing it. I used to think the former when I was much younger, and I used to sort of think, if I read and I watch all this dark stuff, I won't be like all those other people. I'll be prepared, and when the Manson family comes through the door, with the, no, I think we're kidding ourselves if we think that we can prepare ourselves through reading the stuff. But yeah, it's definitely a way of processing it. Yeah,
very much so. It's like the grit. It's like the grit that produces the pearl a lot of the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
And often a weird gritty pearl. Like a pearl one of those really deformed pearls.
We're all weird gritty pearls.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Inspiration quotes from Lynda Rucker. Oh, that'd be great. If we all sat down and produced a bunch of inspirational quotes, that would just the Samaritans the Ponites of the Samaritans would be overheating.
Don't shave the grit out of your pearl. It's what makes it special.
Well, they were motivational. They just motivated people to jump from tall buildings.
Well, who knows?
What's your sort of writing process like anyway, Lynda? I mean, are you more of a planner, a pantser, or how does it look?
Definitely, I don't plan, and I actually can't plan. I was talking to someone about this recently, and I was saying, when I sit down and I try to plan, just nothing happens. I have to be actually writing the story. And I usually start, I know a lot of people start from an idea, but I usually start from an image or a character or a setting that I want to write about. And I've actually been thinking about this a lot today because I went to see Ynys Men last night, which if anyone doesn't know what it has been described as a Cornish experimental folk horror film, which I think kind of sums it up. And as I was watching it, I was thinking, I think I've missed my calling. I think I actually wanted to be an experimental filmmaker. It was like the last time I was this excited about something was like David Lynch's The Return. And I started to realize as I was watching it how uninterested I actually am in narrative, and more in a story. And there is I don't know if you'd say there is a story in the film, at the end of it, I felt like I had been told a story, but it comes at you in oblique ways and through images and through dreams. And to me, I don't know that you can plan something like that. I work very much on instinct, and I don't know if the stories that I write are the kind of stories that you can plan. I know certainly I constantly surprise myself. I don't know. I often don't know where they're going. I don't know what's going to happen. But it's not, I go off in wrong directions. I'll be writing and I'll be going and I'm like, no, this is wrong. I'll go back. I'll throw away 4, 5, 6 pages, okay, this is the direction, I need to go in, but it's just very instinctive. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I'm jumping fan. If the next thing isn't coming along easily, then I'm trying to force it somewhere. It doesn't want to go, and you just end up through trial and error, mostly error. In my case, you pick up a sense for it, and you learn to listen to it because we all know there's nothing to beat it when the writing's going well, and there's nothing worse than it's not. So maximize the one and minimize the other.
Yeah, it's I do think of myself as more of a planner, and a person who comes out of the idea of outlining, but the fact is that often things do begin with just, like a line of dialogue or an image or in much the same way that like a poem forms itself. And that makes me, again, think of Lynch, because Lynch is obsessed with meditation, and the idea of like opening yourself up and emptying yourself, and then whatever comes in, you examine it and you're like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting thing, Coop. What do we do with that?
I can't wait. I really want to see Ynys Men. Not least, it's got John Woodvine in it. He's the father. He's the lead actress. He's I think he must have. He's in his 90s now. I think he must have largely. I don't think he's not done anything in the last few years. So I think he's probably largely retired. And it's that because I think Mary Woodvine, the lead actress, is actually the partner of the director.
Yeah, she is.
So it's probably there. But back when I was sort of in my teens, like in the 70s and the 80s, the guy was in everything. And he's always had kind of this iron grey hair and this quite craggy face. So he's aged very well. There isn't a vast difference between John Woodvine in the 1980s and John Woodvine in the 2010s, really.
Yeah, so, I'm shocked he's 93. I wouldn't have thought that from seeing it. Yeah.
One of those people who seems like he doesn't age because he became an old man, like.
Right.
Like that. It's like, I'm a 20-year-old old man.
Yeah, and there must be pictures of him somewhere with like dark hair when he was comparatively youthful, but he's always got that kind of craggy. He tends to play a lot of authority figures. But yeah, so it was a really good show that was broadcast in the 1980s called Knights of God, and it was this.
God.
Yeah, you'll only be able to find it on YouTube because it was it was done by an independent TV company, because it's an independent an ITV franchise called TVS, which went under, and now it's sort of in, God knows who. I have a horrible feeling the rights are owned by Disney. But it was never really repeated. But it was sort of set in this kind of like dystopian 21st century. Britain is this kind of like wasteland and hellhole. But it was ruled by this kind of like fascistic kind of quite clerical fascist kind of order called the Knights of God, which was led by Prior Mordrin, which was John Woodvine. And there's a lot of Arthurian myth woven into the story. Like Mordrin, the leader of the resistance, who was played by Patrick Troughton, was Mordrin's father, was called Arthur. It's kind of all. It's all kind of. It's a really fascinating series, and done really well on comparatively meager budget. So if you get the chance to watch it on YouTube, it's well worth it. But you will also see that John Woodvine did not look very different in 1987 to how he looks these days.
What fascinates me about Ynys Men is the prospect of seeing something so linked with Cornish culture, because that's one of those liminal cultures, those moments where somebody has tried really hard to erase something, and it seems to be rebuilding itself, which is wonderful. Maybe the same way that Welsh culture rebuilt itself.
I mean, Cornish culture's had a much further way. The last, the Cornish language was considered to have died out. When I was younger, and people have largely, there is a saying in Welsh which translates as "a nation without language, a nation without heart," and I think that's a very strong. I think that's a very strong. That's a very strong thing. So the Welsh have hung on to their language. I mean, of course, after Culloden, the English did a very good job of doing their best to stamp out the Scots Gaelic languages. You're up in the Highlands and Islands to find that now, really. Although, as a friend of mine said, but we Scots we have drunken Glaswegian, which is kind of language in itself.
True.
Or the weird Hebridean mixture of Scots and Viking culture.
I think it was. I can't remember if it was Orkney. Used to have their own language called Norn, which was kind of like a hybrid of Gaelic. And, it's completely died out, unfortunately, because by the time that most Norn speakers couldn't write, so there's only a few little fragments of the language, and there's not enough to try and reconstruct it and try and resurrect the language as has been done with Cornish, which is extremely sad. But it's one of these things that makes you realise even a little country like Britain is made up of so many other little countries. Same like the Isle of Man, that has its own language.
Thanks.
Yeah. So
absolutely. And and again, that very folk horror thing of the thing that has been forgotten, the thing that is being extirpated, the obscure thing, the thing from the underneath, which I think that all three of us are kind of obsessed with.
Oh yeah.
It might be the thing that destroys you, or it might be the thing that saves you. You just don't know.
Yeah. And either's good. Yeah, it's like both are good.
If you want a Lynda story, it'll destroy you. But, I've got to say, the dying season, just reading that story, I don't think I've ever had the experience of reading a story in which on the surface nothing is happening, and yet at the same time I am almost literally shouting out loud, "Get out of there now!" at the Kindle, which is I kind of heaved this sigh of relief as I began the last paragraph, and then it was like, hang on. Has she? Hang on, is that the ending I thought it was?
Well, you don't know.
Yeah, ambiguity again.
It's almost like a choose your own.
Yeah.
Situations. It's like damn it. I'm just going to assume that things got better or worse.
It's a Schrodinger thing. You can the character exists both in a fucked and non-fucked state. And,
I like withholding that resolution. I mean, it's probably cruel to do that, but I think it's more interesting, and I think the story stays with you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it works as well in the context of that story, which is so much like a kind of waking nightmare, and kind of is this what I'm seeing on? Is this what it just what it seems to be on the surface, or is there this kind of that hidden dimension to it? Lynda E Rucker's new collection, Now It's Dark, is out now from Swan River Press, price €40. Swan River also now have her previous collection, You'll Know When You Get There, available in paperback, and her first collection, The Moon Will Look Strange, is available from Amazon. You'll find links to all of those in the description below. We hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. If you did, please smash that like button, share and subscribe. If you'd like to support No Darkness But Ours, you can make a donation via our Ko-Fi page, or alternatively you can subscribe to the podcast or join our Patreon, either of which will get you exclusive access to content including deep dive discussions of folk horror classics In the Earth and Penda's Fen. Again, all the relevant links are in the description below. And that's all we have time for this week, but be sure to join us for our next episode when we move on to such topics as the double-edged nature of being part of a group, the hazards of social media, and some of the fears that populate Lynda's work. Until then, I have been Simon Bestwick.
And I, as usual, am Gemma Files. And this has been No Darkness
But Ours.